Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'm 22 years old. I've just received my college diploma, where I mastered the intricacies of design. And to be frank, the very fact of this event is akin to a small miracle. A miracle I created myself, having paid for the lion's share of my education with my own, far from limitless, funds. I live under the same roof as my mother and stepfather within walls that remember my childhood. But for several years now, these walls haven't whispered the word home to me. They seem to have gone mute, fallen silent, turning into just a place for my temporary stay. And before we continue, write in the comments from which city you are watching this video. Enjoy. My mother tied her fate to Dave 7 years ago when I was 15. He crossed the threshold of our house, bringing with him his daughter, Sarah, who is now 26. For the last few years, she has been living separately with her boyfriend, Marcus. They are frequent guests at our family table. Their presence has become an integral part of any family events. On paper, we are the ideal, model blended family. But reality, as is often the case, is much more complex and not so picturesque. When Dave first came into our lives, my mother, with truly self-sacrificing zeal, tried to make him and Sarah feel wanted and loved. She literally reshaped the fabric of our daily life, tailoring it to new patterns. For instance, Sarah got a bedroom more spacious than mine. Dave's personal belongings gradually pushed my art projects out of the garage, burying the paint-scented creative memories beneath them. And suddenly, all conversations, all discussions started revolving exclusively around the comfort of this new family. I understood it all. Creating a blended family is a difficult task, but somewhere along that winding path, I myself began to turn into an outsider, an almost invisible guest in my own home. My parents, without a second thought, fully paid for Sarah's college education. When it was my turn, out of nowhere, talks emerged about sudden budget constraints and lengthy lectures on financial responsibility. I worked myself to the bone, managed to secure a full scholarship, but there were still all those books, materials, living expenses, everything that required real money. Now I work at a local design firm and have been for 3 months. The salary isn't anything to boast about, but I tell myself that everything has its time, and this is just the beginning. I save every extra penny into a separate account, a secret nest egg harboring the dream of my own, independent space. My parents are aware of my savings. I shared these plans with them, naively thinking they would be proud of my prudence and foresight. Instead, I constantly find myself on the receiving end of strange, biting comments about how convenient it must be to save money while continuing to live at home. Like last week when my mother, with feigned casualness, remarked how nice it must be to avoid real responsibilities while steadily building up a bank account. Dave immediately backed her up, telling a story about how, at my age, he gave half his salary to his parents. Of course, I contribute my share for groceries and utilities, but apparently that sacrifice doesn't seem significant enough. Lately, these transparent hints have been taking on clearer and harsher forms. Remarks keep popping up about how crowded the house has become for everyone, that maybe it's time to spread my wings, that it's unbecoming for adults to always be nestled under their parents' roof. And I'm just trying to save up enough for the first month's rent, last month's rent, a security deposit, and at least some furniture. That takes time when your income is the modest earnings of a junior designer. Tonight, returning from work, I found Sarah and Marcus already in the house. From the doorway, I heard their lively voices mingling with the excited chatter of my mom and Dave coming from the kitchen. My ears caught fragments of phrases: brilliant opportunity, perfect once-in-a-lifetime moment. I thought it was about Marcus's new job or perhaps a joint vacation they were planning. Without a word, I went upstairs to my room to change into comfortable clothes and wash off, to rinse away that sticky, accumulated nervous tension from the day. When I returned to the living room half an hour later, everyone was already at dinner. Mom, as per the long-standing tradition of a weekday evening, had made chicken, and the atmosphere at the table seemed surprisingly light and cheerful. Silently, I took my place and started serving myself salad, trying not to disrupt the general mood. At that moment, my mother coughed, that short, slightly strained sound that since childhood has meant words of particular importance were to follow. "Stephanie, we have wonderful news we want to share with you," she said, exchanging a radiant look with Sarah. Sarah, meanwhile, looked like she was about to bounce off her chair with excitement. "We're going to the Bahamas next month," she blurted out, unable to contain her delight. "Marcus found an incredible package deal, and we're finally making our dream come true, the one we've been talking about for what seems like forever." "That sounds truly amazing," I responded, and there was no falseness in my words. I could genuinely be happy for them. "You've both worked so hard. You deserve this break." Marcus nodded vigorously, a happy smile lighting up his face. "It's going to be perfect," he confirmed. 5 days, 4 nights, an all-inclusive resort. The whole fairy tale will cost us about $10,000. I almost choked on a piece of chicken. $10,000. That sum was almost equal to my salary for 4 long, strenuous months. "Wow, that's very serious money," I said cautiously, feeling something invisible and heavy beginning to thicken in the air. The smile on my mother's face became a bit more strained, artificial. "Well, that's exactly what we wanted to talk to you about, dear." Sarah leaned across the table closer to me, her eyes shining like 2 emeralds. "You see, the thing is, we don't have that kind of money right now, but we know for a fact that you do. You've been diligently saving all these months into your separate account." I stared at her, feeling the ground disappear from under my feet. "I'm sorry. What?" My mother hurried to interject, and her voice took on sweet, coaxing tones. "We all thought, since we're one family and family always helps each other, maybe you could lend Sarah and Marcus the necessary amount for this wonderful trip. They'll pay you back, of course." "Absolutely." A grave, deafening silence fell over the dining room, broken only by the relentless, measured sound of Marcus's knife cutting through a chicken breast. My gaze slowly slid over the faces of those gathered. My mother was nodding encouragingly and a little pleadingly. Dave was looking at me with such a stern and demanding expression, as if expecting the only correct, adult thing to do. Sarah was frozen in a pose full of hope and impatience. "No," my voice sounded, quiet but distinct and firm. "I will not give you $10,000 for a vacation. That money is for something truly important. It's my safety net, my chance at my own housing. It's my future." Dave's face instantly darkened, flushing with blood. "Your future?" he growled, and his words sounded like the crack of a whip. "What about family? What about helping those who have supported you your entire life?" "Supported me?" My voice broke and became louder, piercing the oppressive silence. "Sarah's college education was paid for in full. I didn't have that luxury. I worked and saved every penny, living here and paying you rent and for groceries. This is the first time I've ever managed to save anything at all. And you want me to just give that money away for a vacation?" "This isn't just a vacation," my mother cut in sharply, enunciating every word. "This is their honeymoon. They've been together for 3 years. They deserve something truly special. Then let them save up for that special thing themselves." Steel notes rang in my voice. "Just like I'm saving for my goals." Dave slammed his palm on the table with such force that all the dishes jumped and clattered. "Ungrateful," he roared. "That's what you are. Absolutely ungrateful. Your mother and I gave you a roof over your head, food on the table, and this is how you repay us, hoarding money while your sister needs help." My mother didn't say a single word in my defense. She just sat there, her eyes downcast, silently like a puppet, nodding in time with his angry accusations. I left my dinner unfinished and went up to my room. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear muffled, angry voices from below, but couldn't make out individual words, just an angry buzzing, like from a furious swarm of bees. Entering my room, I collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling my heart pounding wildly in my chest, echoing in my temples with a heavy, irregular beat. $10,000. They wanted me to just give them that money as if it meant nothing, as if all those months of strict budgeting, denying myself new clothes, coffee to go, and little joys, all of it was for nothing, as if my dreams of independence, of my own corner where I wouldn't have to justify every penny spent, carried no weight whatsoever. The next morning, an icy silence reigned in the house. My mother, who was usually already bustling in the kitchen, brewing aromatic coffee and asking about my plans for the day, seemed to have vanished. When I came downstairs, there was no breakfast on the table, no hint of the usual morning chat about work, just a hollow, oppressive emptiness. The silent treatment, cold and methodical, lasted for exactly 7 days. For a whole week, my mother pretended I was a ghost, intangible and invisible. Dave, whenever we accidentally crossed paths, would shoot me heavy, reproachful looks. I ate breakfast in complete solitude, listening to their subdued laughter and lively conversations from the living room, feeling like an uninvited guest within the walls that were once my home. On Friday, it was my birthday. I was never a big fan of noisy celebrations, but deep down, I still nurtured a faint hope that this day would be the bridge that would set everything right. My mother had always placed special importance on birthdays, a mandatory homemade cake, my favorite dinner, little rituals. Even in the toughest times, she had never forgotten to congratulate me. The evening before, I tried to hint, running into her in the hallway. "So, tomorrow's the day," I said, trying to sound light. She just looked at me with genuine, unfeigned confusion. "What day?" she asked. "My birthday. I'm turning 23. "Oh." She just shrugged indifferently and walked past, leaving me completely alone. Friday morning came and went without a single congratulation. No traditional words over a cup of coffee, no special breakfast, absolutely nothing. I convinced myself that maybe they were preparing a surprise for the evening and needed the whole day to organize it. On my way home from work, I stopped by a pastry shop and bought myself a luxurious chocolate cake. It cost $40, an amount unthinkable for my usual spending, but I decided that on my birthday, I had the right to something truly nice. When I crossed the threshold of the house, holding the fancy box, my ears caught lively voices coming from the dining room. Sarah and Marcus were here again, sitting at the table with my parents. Perfect, flashed through my mind, and my heart leapt with hope. They're all here for my birthday dinner. I entered the dining room with the widest smile I'd had all week. "Hi, everyone. Look what I brought for dessert," I exclaimed, and with a slight theatrical gesture, placed the box on the table. The conversation instantly cut off. Everyone stared at me with expressions as if I had just announced my decision to join a traveling circus. My mother's face was frozen, cold and impenetrable like a block of granite. "And what exactly are we supposed to be celebrating?" she inquired in an icy tone. My smile slowly faded. "Today is my birthday." She just waved her hand dismissively, as if shooing away a bothersome fly. "That's no reason to buy an expensive cake and expect everyone to drop what they're doing." Sarah and Marcus burst out laughing loudly. It wasn't a polite, embarrassed chuckle, but genuine, loud laughter, as if I had just told the most absurd and funny joke they'd ever heard. "Wait," I said, and my voice sounded unnaturally quiet as my gaze swept over their stony faces. "Did you all forget that today is my birthday?" Dave slowly leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest in an eloquent gesture of self-assured superiority. "We remembered perfectly well," came his measured, warmthless reply. "We remembered right up until the moment you decided that money was more important to you than family." My heart sank into a void. What does that mean? My mother, without a word, took a fancy white envelope from her purse. Her movements were polished, almost theatrical. "This was supposed to be your gift," she explained coldly. $500, from Dave and me." She opened the envelope and fanned out the bills, as if displaying a winning poker hand meant to put me in my place once and for all. "But after your little performance last week, after you made it clear who you really are, we decided to give this money to someone who truly deserves it." With a smooth, contemptuous gesture, she slid the money across the table towards Sarah. Sarah squealed, full of triumph, and grabbed it. "Oh my God, thank you so much. This gets us so much closer to our goal. I think we're only short about 4,000 now." Sarah immediately launched into animated chatter about resort activities and snorkeling excursions. but her words reached me as a distant, meaningless noise. A deafening roar filled my ears, as if all the air had been suddenly pumped out of the room, swallowing all sound. "Since you don't wish to act like family," my mother continued, and each of her words fell like an icy drop, "we won't treat you like family either. No celebration, no dinner, no gifts, nothing at all." I still stood there clutching the cake box, feeling like a complete fool, an uninvited guest who had wandered into someone else's celebration. "I asked you for one thing," Dave chimed in, and his voice held genuine bitterness. "One simple thing, to help your sister when she needs it, and you couldn't even do that." "It wasn't simple," I exhaled barely audibly. "It was $10,000. "This is family," my mother shrieked, and her voice trembled with indignation. "But apparently your bank account means much more to you." I looked at Sarah, who was beaming as she counted the bills. At Marcus, buried in his phone, probably already booking those very excursions. At my parents, looking at me with a gaze full of cold alienation, as if I were a stranger who had burst into their idyll. No one even noticed as I turned around and left the room. I left the cake on the table, let it go to them, this new, real family, and went upstairs. Sitting down on the bed, I felt a wave of bitter, long-accumulated memories wash over me. I remembered how, after Dave and Sarah moved in, my mother's time and attention seemed to evaporate, leaving not a crumb for me. How Sarah went through college without a care while I struggled with 2 jobs, trying to balance studies and survival. How all conversations revolved around the comfort of the new family, and I, by everyone's silent agreement, was supposed to stay out of the way. Mentally, I traveled even further back to my biological father, who left when I was 13. My mother always called him an irresponsible scoundrel who abandoned us for another woman. She worked so hard to mold his image as a traitor in my mind that when he tried to call or write, I refused to speak to him. He still sent alimony faithfully, cards for graduation, but I, following my mother's instructions, threw them away without regret, as she convinced me they were just pathetic attempts to ease his conscience. Maybe she was right about him in some ways, but sitting there now in my room in complete solitude, with a birthday cake no one wanted to share, I realized with painful crystal clarity something very important. I had been truly alone for a very, very long time. Even before tonight, before this money scandal, I had always done everything myself, silently watching from the sidelines as my mother, with a dedication she so lacked towards me, built her new, perfect family. I was tired to the bone of being the perpetual outsider in my own life, the eternal fifth wheel, tired of being treated as if I owed eternal gratitude for basic decency and a roof over my head that I paid for myself, tired of watching everyone else, Sarah, Marcus, even Dave, get everything they wanted on a silver platter while I broke my back for pennies, begging fate for the right to my own future. That night, I didn't sleep a wink packing my things. I methodically, with almost painful thoroughness, placed all my clothes, my well-worn design textbooks, my brushes and paints, mute witnesses to my deferred ambitions, into cardboard boxes. In the early morning, when the first, most difficult light was appearing outside, I dialed my friend Amy's number. "Can I stay with you for a bit, until I find my own place?" My voice sounded hoarse and tired. "Of course," she replied without hesitation. "What's going on?" "I'll tell you tomorrow. I just need to get out of here." On Sunday morning, when the house was immersed in a sleepy, sated silence, I, sneaking around like a thief, loaded my entire life, everything I had acquired through years of study and labor, into the trunk and back seat of my old Honda Civic. I didn't leave any notes, didn't see the need to say goodbye. Amy's tiny one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town greeted me with its cramped space. But in that crampedness, there was more warmth and care than in our entire spacious house. Without asking unnecessary questions, she cleared a spot for me on the sofa. Over coffee and toast that first morning, I poured everything out to her. I dumped the whole story about the demand for money, the humiliating birthday failure, the years of silent alienation. Before dinner, my phone vibrated. A message from my mom. "Where are you?" I stared at those two short words for long minutes before replying, "I moved out." The reply came instantly. "Okay." And that was it. Not a single question. No attempt to start a dialogue. Just a cold, indifferent acknowledgement of a fact, as if I were a lodger who had overstayed their welcome and finally vacated the room. After 2 weeks of persistent searching, I found a studio apartment 20 minutes from work. It was small, essentially just a room with a kitchenette and a bathroom the size of a decent walk-in closet, but it was mine. The rent devoured a good half of my salary, but I didn't care. I had my own space, my own key, my own life, separate from everyone. The first year was tough. I took overtime when I could, lived mostly on instant noodles and buckwheat, and furnished the place with secondhand finds and sale items. But I was happy, truly tearfully happy, like I hadn't been in years. My family didn't call, didn't write. No holiday invitations. Christmas came and went in silence. My next birthday passed without a sound. It was as if I had been erased from the map of their universe. A couple of aunts would sometimes call on holidays, wondering why I wasn't at family dinners. "Just busy with things." I'd brush them off. Nothing serious. I didn't want to get into explanations. What could I say? That my own mother preferred her stepdaughter's honeymoon to her own daughter's birthday? That I was effectively disowned for not handing over all my savings? Sometimes the thought seemed insane even to me. And then, out of the blue, I got a call from my biological father. I almost ignored the unknown number, but some vague, aching feeling made me pick up. "Stephanie, it's your father." I hadn't heard his voice in 8 long years. He sounded older, wearier, more cautious. "Dad." The word felt foreign and awkward on my tongue. "I heard you had a falling out with your mother. I'd like to meet and talk." My first impulse was to hang up. Years of my mother's tirades about what a terrible person he was, how he abandoned us, how he didn't care about anyone, stood between us like an impenetrable wall. But sitting in my little studio, completely cut off from everyone I grew up with, I thought, what exactly do I have to lose? We met at a neutral coffee shop downtown. I barely recognized him. He looked aged, grayer, but his eyes were the same. He ordered coffee for us, and we sat across from each other like absolute strangers fate had brought to the same table. "I'm sorry," he said, and the words seemed to hang in the air between us, filled with years of weight. For everything at once, for leaving, for not fighting for you harder, for believing your mother when she said you didn't want to see me. I listened, unable to utter a word, as he confessed, unraveling a tangle of old lies. She kept saying, "I abandoned you." Yes, I left her. Our marriage fell apart. But I never wanted to abandon you. His voice trembled, betraying pain held back all these years. Your mother made it clear that any contact from me would only complicate your life. She convinced me that you were angry and didn't want my letters or calls. I kept sending cards, hoping you'd change your mind, but getting no response, I eventually resigned myself. "She's just trying to ease her conscience," your mom would say. He nodded sadly, a bitter understanding in his eyes. I thought so too, but I couldn't stop hoping. And when word reached me that you had moved out, that there had been some major falling out, I thought, maybe we have a chance to start over now. We sat in that coffee shop for 3 hours, and during that time, the years of estrangement began to slowly melt away. He told me about his wife, Lisa, who, from his warm descriptions, seemed like an amazing person. He talked about his work, his house, about how he secretly watched the online stream of my college graduation because he wasn't allowed to attend in person. He apologized again and again, and there was no falseness in his words. "I want to be a part of your life again, if you'll allow it, of course," he said as we finally got ready to leave. "I know I have a lot to make up for." I surprised myself by agreeing, I admitted to him. Lisa turned out to be exactly that. Amazing. She was warm, genuine, and cheerful, and in her presence, I never felt like a stranger or an outsider. She asked about my work with genuine interest, remembered the smallest details about my friends and colleagues, and treated me as if my appearance was a real celebration for her. It was unusual and strange to have a stepfather who seemed genuinely happy about my presence and interested in my opinion. My father had done well in life. He owned his own construction company and lived in a lovely, cozy house on the other side of town. Every visit from me turned into a small tour. He showed me new projects he was working on and always asked for my professional opinion as a designer. He was proud of me so openly and naturally that at first it seemed almost unreal after years spent in an atmosphere of silent judgment at my mom's. When I turned 26, they threw me a surprise party. Nothing grand, just a few of my father's friends and Lisa's sister. But all these people had gathered that evening for me. The cake had my name on it, the decorations were in my favorite colors. And when Dad handed me a festive envelope, I expected to find a gift card or maybe money inside. Instead, my fingers touched the cold metal of keys. "It's not big," he said hastily, and a note of excitement crept into his voice. "Just 2 bedrooms, but in a very good neighborhood, and the mortgage on it is fully paid off. I thought you might want to stop throwing money away on rent." I looked from the keys lying in my palm to his beaming face, then to Lisa, who was smiling as if she held the most important and beautiful secret in the world. You bought me a house. You're my daughter," he said simply. "You deserve to have something that's truly yours." I burst into tears right there in their living room. They were tears of relief, shock, and immense gratitude. I couldn't recall the last time someone had done something so monumental and generous for me, asking for nothing in return, simply because they wanted me to be happy. The house was perfect, small but incredibly cozy, with a tiny backyard and large panoramic windows that let in generous amounts of sunlight. I spent several weeks painting the walls and arranging the decor myself, delighting in buying real, new furniture instead of the used items I'd had to make do with all the previous years. A month later, when the dust of settling had somewhat settled, I posted a picture on social media. In it, I was standing in front of my new house, clutching the keychain, with barely contained happy excitement. The caption read, "Immeasurably grateful for my own little corner." Right at that moment, as I was immersed in the meditative process of unpacking kitchen boxes, finally finding a place for every plate, my phone rang. My mom's name on the screen caused an instant spasm in my stomach, and my first impulse was to send the call to voicemail. We hadn't exchanged a single word in 3 long years. "Stephanie, sweetie." Her voice sounded surprisingly sweet and tender, as if we'd had coffee together yesterday. "I saw your picture. The house looks lovely. I'm just curious, where did you get the money for such a purchase?" Not a single congratulations, not a spark of pride, not even a simple, "How are you?" Just instant sharp curiosity about the source of the funds. "That's none of your business," I cut her off, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "Darling, I'm your mother. I'm just concerned about your well-being." Her tone became honeyed but with steely undertones. "With your salary, you couldn't have afforded this. I hope you haven't gotten yourself into something shady." "Shady? Seriously?" "I just want to make sure you're okay. Maybe we should meet and talk. I miss you." "I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. I'm perfectly fine without you." I hung up and tried to get back to unpacking, but my hands were trembling slightly. Even after 3 years, she managed to knock the ground out from under me with one phone call. A few weeks later, as I was planting new flowers in my tiny backyard covered in dirt, I heard voices at the gate. Looking up, I saw my mom, Dave, Sarah, and Marcus marching up my own driveway to the house with an air as if they were the rightful owners. I met them on the porch, blocking the entrance. "What are you doing here?" Without waiting for an invitation, they simply strode past me into the house. I silently watched as they looked around, their gazes sliding over the hardwood floors, the new furniture, the paintings on the walls. Sarah's eyes literally turned green with envy. "Cute," Dave drawled, running his hand over my granite countertop. "Very cute. Must have cost a fortune. And how did you manage to afford this?" His question sounded like an accusation. I'm wondering the same thing, my mom chimed in, her voice becoming hard. I know your salary. It wouldn't be enough for a house like this. My father gave it to me, I replied calmly. My mother's face instantly turned crimson. Oh, that scoundrel, that absolute bastard, she shouted. He abandoned his family, and now he shows up with money, playing the benefactor. He didn't abandon me. He left you. There's a big difference. He's a traitor who shirked his responsibilities. You want to talk about traitors? My voice rang out, growing louder. You're the one who chose a new family over your own daughter. You're the one who took my birthday money and gave it to Sarah. You're the one who treated me like garbage. Before my mother could find a retort, Sarah intervened. Look, all that is ancient history, she declared with false ease. The main thing is that Marcus and I got married last year, and we're having a baby. I'm 3 months pregnant. I stared at her, speechless. Congratulations, I guess. We need a place to live, she continued, undeterred. Things aren't going great for Marcus work-wise, and we can't afford much. It's really awful. But that's not my problem, I finished for her. My mother took a step forward. Actually, it is your problem. You don't deserve a house like this. You should give it to Sarah and the baby. I laughed, but there wasn't a trace of amusement in it. Are you insane? Why on earth should I give away my house? Because you owe it to your family, she shouted heatedly. You tore us apart with your selfishness. Now you need to make amends. I tore you apart? My voice broke. You threw me out because I wouldn't pay for Sarah's vacation. You chose money over family, Dave proclaimed, and his voice held unshakable confidence in his own righteousness. And now you need to choose family over money. It sounded like a verdict, an ultimatum not open for discussion. Get out, my voice sounded, quiet but brooking no argument. All of you, out of my house right now. Yet they didn't even budge, as if the roots of their outrageous confidence had grown through my new hardwood floors. We're not leaving until you agree to do the right thing, Sarah stated, crossing her arms defiantly, her posture expressing unshakable conviction that my property rightfully belonged to her. In that moment, I realized words were useless. Then I'll call the police, I said, and my finger was already hovering over the phone screen, pulling up the emergency number. Only that specific, tangible threat made them flinch. They backed towards the exit, showering me with a hail of insults, selfish, ungrateful, and worse. But the door slammed shut behind them, and I immediately turned the key in the lock. With trembling hands, I dialed my father's number. They want me to give my house to Sarah, I exhaled, barely holding back sobs. They seriously think I should just hand it over to them because she's pregnant. Document everything, Stephanie, he said calmly but firmly. If they keep harassing you, we'll need undeniable evidence. And they kept it up. For almost a month, my phone didn't stop ringing, turning into an instrument of psychological torture. Voicemails from my mom, laced with reproaches about family duty and attempts to guilt-trip me. Messages from Sarah accusing me of single-handedly destroying her unborn child's future. Even Marcus honored me with angry tirades about my heartlessness. I was called selfish, greedy, callous, told I had always been jealous of Sarah, and that I was a terrible person who didn't deserve anything good in life. Some of the messages bordered on direct threats, hinting at the consequences of my wrong choice. But I followed my father's instruction. I saved everything. Every screenshot, every voicemail, it all went into a folder that was to become my shield. After a month of this nightmare, I handed over all the compiled evidence to the lawyer my father had hired. He sent them a formal cease and desist letter, which unequivocally stated that any further harassment, threats, or attempts to unlawfully claim the property would lead to the most serious legal consequences. The letter was sent by certified mail with return receipt requested and duplicated via email, so proof of receipt was easy to establish. And what do you know? The messages stopped after about a week. Complete deafening silence ensued. It seemed the real prospect of facing the law scared them far more than the abstract idea of helping family, which in reality turned out to be a simple desire for free housing. 6 months have passed since then. I still live in my small but cozy house, I still work at the design firm, and I have dinner with my dad and Lisa every Sunday. My life has gained a quiet, calm rhythm that I cherish so much. Sometimes, fragments of news reach me through mutual acquaintances. Sarah had a baby girl. My mom still tells everyone that I abandoned the family due to my pathological greed for money, skillfully playing the role of the offended victim who has no idea what she did to deserve such treatment. I don't waste energy on justifying or defending myself. Those who are truly important in my life know the truth. The rest are free to believe whatever they want. I'm 27 now, and I finally truly understand what it means to be valued. My dad takes a genuine interest in my work, remembers the names of all my friends, and is truly happy about my, even the smallest, professional victories. Lisa constantly sends me new recipes and funny memes, and they both treat me as if I am an integral and important part of their lives. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, what if I had given Sarah those $10,000 3 years ago? I'd probably still be living in my childhood bedroom, still being treated as something secondary, and still watching from the sidelines as everyone else got what they wanted, while I had absolutely nothing. But instead, I'm here, in my own house, in my own self-built life, surrounded by people who genuinely care for me. I chose myself, and that turned out to be the most correct and liberating decision of my entire life.